People are going to need to know why. Hey everybody, Scott D. Medlock here. Welcome to another podcast. Got a lot of things on my mind today. Not quite sure how I'm going to get them all out there to you. But, I've been hearing a lot about Amendment 5 for Missouri. And I know a lot of people on both sides of the argument on the amendment. From what I understand, the amendment is to eventually, that's a big word, delete income tax for Missouri state workers. Well, not like state employee workers, but people who work in Missouri eventually could see a reduction or even elimination of Missouri state income taxes. While I'm a proponent and for the elimination of Missouri state income taxes from my paycheck, what I'm not too excited about is the idea that the bill or the amendment or whatever that stuff is called is going to give Missouri state lawmakers 5 years to work through the process. 5 years. You know why they do that? Well, let me tell you why they do that. I heard a story a long time ago that they say, or I've heard it said, I haven't done it, it'd be kind of rude, but you can put a frog in a pot of water, put it on the stove, and turn that dude up and slowly but surely bring it to a boiling point. And the frog won't jump out because it'll get used to it, and then it'll eventually just succumb to the boiling water. Well, with this Amendment 5, like I just said, they're going to raise taxes on goods and services over 5 years. Well, the reason they want to do it over 5 years is because, well, you and I are the frog. Yes, you and I are the frog. We're the ones that get stuck with all the nonsense. So, presently, taxes are 3 or 4% on goods and what services are able to be taxed. But some of the language in this bill or this amendment thing state that it will repeal all constitutional bans on other taxes, such as services, right? Haircuts, suddenly haircuts are taxable, right? You go in, you get your $15 haircut or $20 haircut, and the next thing you know, they're going to add another dollar of tax to it on top of, if you're a nice person, you tip 5, 10, 20, whatever it is. So then you gotta pay tax. They have to pay tax. You have to pay the tax on that service, right? Gasoline tax is already stupid because of the last law that the stupid Republicans that were in representatives at the time, they put that in there. I don't know if y'all remember that or not, but they come out and they were like, oh yeah, we're going to pass this tax because we need some stuff to happen and infrastructure, blah, 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 nonsense, bullcrap. So they put this bill in there and they said, oh, but we're going to give you an out if at the end of the year you can keep all your gas receipts, and then just go to a website and enter your gas receipts, and then by golly, you'll get your taxes back. Well, that went over like a lead balloon. I tried it myself. I kept every single tax receipt for the entire year, and I went to their website, and basically it's worthless because in order to get to all the stuff, there were so many hoops and things to jump through. You couldn't just like scan your receipts in or anything. You had to like literally enter every single thing in from the receipts and all these other things. And by the time that you went through all that, you thought, dadgum, it ain't worth my time to get a couple bucks back from my taxes. I mean, some people maybe had a lot more gas tax than I did, but man, I mean, by the time you go through it, so yeah, I just remember that the one guy that I know that was a representative at that time, I called him on it and just was asked him about it and wasn't happy with him. So anyhow, this Amendment 5 thing, we have to understand that. Okay, like I watched one video. I was watching a video on the YouTubes, and then this lady comes on there on an advertisement that's for Amendment 5. And she comes on there and she's pointing at a piggy bank, and, it's about time that the government gets their hands out of my piggy bank. And she's got these big, sad puppy dog grandma eyes, and she talks about, well, it's about time we make them, write the budget and do this and do that and the other. And I'm thinking, sister, the same ones that are proposing this amendment are the same ones you're complaining about having their hands in your piggy bank. So that doesn't make real sense to me. So, but anyway, I watched that lady for a little while, and I'm just like, come on, man. Wait a minute, that ain't right. That sounded like Joe Biden. Sorry about that. Anyway, I was like, well, wait a minute, that was a joke, guys. Please, just be chill, all right? We're having fun. I'm just trying to put some stuff out here just so you know. Anyhow, so I'm going through it. I'm looking at this stuff, and, I've been around a couple of days, maybe a number of years, and every time they go to do these tax adjustments where they're going to do, we're losing something. You're not gaining. When they come up and they're like, we're going to do this, we're looking at a shell game, right? So how much, I'm asking, how much are they charging? How much, where's it going to come from? What happens? Okay. So what are the repercussions? What happens down the road? I'll go back to my other happy question that I usually ask is, why? Okay. I really want to know why. So what we're going to look at is, right now the state of Missouri cannot tax quite a few of our goods and services because of our Missouri Constitution. This eliminates that. If you vote yes on Amendment 5, you're telling them they can tax everything. They can tax school supplies, they can tax your gas, they can tax your home sale. Try that out. Go down the road and go buy you a house, $250,000. You put your $50,000 down, buy your house, whatever, 100% on. I don't care how you do it, but then you go to the closing office and they say, oh, by the way, there's a 10% tax on house sales now, so we need another $25,000 to close this. Really? You think they won't do it? You think? They tax us on stuff we already own. Missouri does. The counties do. They tax us on what we already own. If you own your home and they send you a tax bill, what the heck's up with that? You already own it. Well, what do you think they're going to do with this? You think they're going to say, oh, man, let's not tax houses? No, I don't think so. I think they'll go after houses and then your cars, right? So, I don't know. Maybe I'm stupid, but when I look at stuff and I see to where, you go to buy a car and you pay your taxes on it, and it's, I don't know, 6-7%, whatever, then it's total state's like 10-12%. So you pay your tax on it, but now they're looking at raising that tax, not just a little, I mean, not from like 3 to 5 or 3 to 6, but maybe 10, 11, maybe 12. So your your local taxes might be 6%, and then you get 12% state tax on top of it. Well, you're looking at 12 and 6, 18. Just call it 20 for even numbers. Well, dadgum, you get 20% on top of your car. That's a pretty good chunk. These cars ain't cheap nowadays. Many of you guys know. Some of y'all out there buying them new ones. You buy an $80,000 car, you pay $16,000 in taxes. Why the heck do I got to pay $16,000 in taxes on a car? That's stupid. So, like I said, I just wanted to kind of go over some of this stuff and just kind of look at it because I get frustrated, with how things go, and people are busy. Nobody really has time. I'm looking at my screen. I have a computer screen right here. So I'm looking at some of this information here. Let's just read. Okay, check out this. Here's some language that's in the bill right now. Notwithstanding quote, notwithstanding any provision of this Constitution to the contrary. So in other words, they don't even know what the Constitution says, if this is even constitutional or not, but if something's to the contrary, then they'll just do something else, right? For the purpose of reducing and eliminating the state individual income tax, I'm okay with that. State and local sales and use tax may be expanded by legislation to impose taxes on transactions involving goods and services. Okay, I don't really think that's good. Okay. So then, they don't just stop there, right? It'd be different if they come out and said, you know what, we're going to eliminate your income tax and we're going to hit you with a 5% flat tax. Missouri statewide, all whatever sales tax is going to just be increased 5%, done. I might get behind that, right? 5% sales tax, we're right now 2.3 or 4, something like that, 3%. 5% flat tax, no income tax, I might get into that. But here, now listen to this. Okay, it says, and if, quote, still whatever, such legislation is enacted within 5 years of the effective date of this amendment, it shall not be considered a new annual revenue for the purposes of Section 18E, and shall be exempt from the provisions of Article 4, Section 30B, 30C, and 30D. Okay. Did you hear that in there? 5 years. Over the next 5 years, you vote yes on Amendment 5. Over the next 5 years, you give, it doesn't matter if they're Republicans or Democrats, for the next 5 years, you give them the right to levy taxes on anything they want for 5 years. And you think, well, you'd be mistaken to think, but you might think that they would have fiscal restraint and would only do what's necessary to eliminate the income tax, the Missouri wages income tax. That you might think that, but I don't trust them that far. There's no way that I can deal with the idea that they might be like, oh, you know what, guys, we're only going to raise them up this much because now the math works and income taxes are gone. What happens if we make the income tax in 2 years and then they just keep raising it up? More sales tax, more sales tax, more sales tax? No, the big answer is no, right? Now listen, don't get me wrong. I don't want to pay income tax any more than any rest of you. But at the same time, I don't want to go to the grocery store and have my grocery bill go up 15%, 10%. I don't want to have my gas bill go up when I go to the gas station 10%. Are you hearing me? I'm not up for them having an idea that they might decide they want to tax your house. Well, they're going to have a house tax or something. They could literally tax anything. They're doing away with the amendments or the constitutional parts that tells them they can't do stuff because they want the power to do it. That's what the deal is. Now, I was telling you that I've been writing some books, right? I've been writing about these books, and the one that I got is this one here. I think I showed it to you in the last one. And what I've been watching over the years is the constant boom-bust cycle and how they're working through it, right? Now, the boom-bust cycle, every time it happens, like I think I mentioned it in that other video there where, we did the boom-bust 71, we did away with the gold and the dollar, and then 82, we had the tax cuts, and then we had more tax cuts, and then we had, the different busts, you got up there, we got all the way up to 2008, and every time we come up in order to recover, what do? Well, they cut taxes, right? And then they make loans available. In other words, they're printing money. The government doesn't have money. The government has the ability to loan money, which creates money. And so the government loans money out to people, which creates the money. But the problem is none of the money actually gets paid back. And so the hole just gets deeper right? It works the same for individuals. If you're an individual and you're in the hole and you're trying to get out of the hole, once they drop your income tax to zero, well, which is what they're trying to do here. Once they drop your income tax to zero, you'll have nothing else for the government to step in and make things happen. So what do I mean by you'll have nothing left to make an adjustment? Well, for some of y'all maybe ain't been around earning money for a long time. Maybe you don't remember any like tax cuts to your wages or any tax cuts pretty much of any kind. But I know historically, if you look, I mean, there was a time when there was a 70% corporate tax and 50% individual income tax, and now they got it on tax brackets, and how much you make determines how much your taxes are. And what they keep doing is they just keep moving the money around. It's not really getting better. Okay. In the last number of years, what they've done in order to try to help the lower income folks is they keep raising the standard deduction. And basically what that does is that means that the person doesn't have to pay income tax on a certain dollar amount of income. Federal income tax, state income tax, etc. And I don't know if y'all noticed or not, but the standard deduction, I mean, years ago was like $7,500. You had to make more than $7,500 a year for federal tax, and then state tax had a similar kind of process, But now, I mean, it's like, what, $13,000-14,000 for an individual to pay no taxes. I mean, they're basically telling you that you're so broke that you really can't afford to pay taxes, so we're going to give back to you whatever you earned or whatever you paid in on your earnings. And, and now I think, I don't remember what it was last year, year before, but it seems like married filing jointly was, what, 20,000 maybe, 23,000. So, I mean, if you're a couple and you're making $23,000, you don't make enough the government thinks you should be taxed at all anyways. And that's really kind of telling, because that means that the value of the dollar has just completely decreased to the point to where basically 20,000 is the same as zero. I mean, you're barely making enough to even get along. I just can't see how a reduction in income tax and an increase in state use and not income tax, but state tax and use tax on sales of goods is going to be better than just the 3% that we pay in income tax. Because like I said before, I can't, man, 10% more on your gas, right? Another 35 cents a gallon this today because of all that's going on. I just drove by and it was $3.89 again. Well, just go ahead and tack another 10 cents on that, or 38 cents on that, 10%, and we're back over $4 a gallon on gas. I mean, I don't know about you, but man, there's times whenever I drove 35, 45, 50 miles to work, and man, when you're ripping out, 60 gallons of gas a week or 50 gallons of gas a week, that begins to dig into your pocket. I mean, you take even $100 a week in gas, that's $5,200 a year, and on a dollar, if it's $1. I mean, then you go to more than that, 10 grand a year if it's $2. So it just keeps going up, and it doesn't really fit the idea that, the economy is supposed to work for the people. The people aren't supposed to be the bearers of the economy. We should be benefiting from the economy. The goods and services shouldn't be taxed so hard that you can't even buy them. I mean, maybe you got enough to buy it, but you ain't got the extra 35% for taxes. What good is that? So anyhow, I just, I look at all this stuff and I think, we've got to do some harder figuring, and you've got to also look at, who the beneficiaries are of the taxes. Where are they going? What are we doing? Sometimes I look at it and I think, well, what are our taxes going to? And so let me just talk a little bit about that for a minute, just a second. So, all right, here I'm looking at my screen here, and then I'll edit this in somewhere on the page here. But for the fiscal year 2025, governor's recommended operating budget, and I'm looking at the Columbia Missourian, and the date on here is, it's a couple years ago, January 24, 2024, by Ezra Bitterman. Ezra, you out there? Anyhow, I'm reading what he's got on here. So if I look at the fiscal year on this, the total budget of all funds is $51,819,603,984. And so the way that's broke up is in funds is other funds, $11,361,000. Non-discretionary funds is $11,336,000,000. And federal funds is $25,742,000,000. More numbers there, but that's not necessary. And then, so it gives a little breakdown of discretionary revenue, but it doesn't tell me the numbers on here. But, we got, it's got other discretionary general revenue, $3,807,586,495. Higher education, and we spend in Missouri $1,278,950,485 in this budget that he's proposed. On that, the other discretionary funds aren't even listed. They're not there. You got the Department of Revenue, MoDOT, DPS, DOC, DMH, DHS, and DSS. And then there's DESE. I don't know what any of them initials are. But I think the part that's really interesting to me here is that if it wasn't for the $25 billion in federal funds, we're sunk. Yeah, sunk. I know I started talking about Amendment 5 and I'm getting sidetracked, but I'll get back to that. But we're sunk, all right? So if we cut personal income tax, right, and say the next governor and the next president don't get along in the next 5 years, because we're going to have a change in commanders and chiefs and stuff. So we get a new president, and the president, maybe we'll end up with a Democrat governor and another Republican president, and they don't get along. And so they decide to cut our federal funding. But, well, now they've already cut our income tax, so what does that do to our goods and services? They got to make up that $25 billion somewhere. Where does it come from? If it's coming from the Fed, and they take it away, then that's half of our budget comes from the federal government, not our state budget. So we're already not actually balanced budgeted like we're supposed to be. They say we are, but we're only balanced budget because of what the federal government puts in. $25 billion, half. And so with this new bill, they're going to say, well, we want to make it to where we can tax anything that we want to tax. Anything. Cars, houses, boats, desks, just, I don't know, just use your imagination. Because if they have to, they will leverage a tax. And if they do it in the next 5 years, there's no vote. You don't get to vote on it, whether they raise your gas tax 10% or 5% or 3%, because they have a 5-year window to raise taxes to offset the state income tax. Well, if the state income tax doesn't cover what the federal government's putting in there, and they drop it, then we have to replace that $25 billion with something. It's going to be taxes on your goods and services. So when I look at all these things, I'm thinking, what in the world are we thinking as a state to rely on $25 billion of other funding, and then we're over here playing this shell game with the Amendment 5. Well, we're going to take income tax and we're going to do away with it, but then we're going to take and add sales tax. Does that make sense to you? It doesn't make any sense to me at all. I just think that there's better options and there's better ways to do things as far as eliminating taxes than we are seeing right now with the options that we have on the table. Honestly, some of the stuff that comes out of our state government is really backwards to the way that I think as an American, as a conservative, when I think about the the American dream, right? The American dream is you don't want to pay taxes in the American dream, right? But at the same time, we got to have some way to pay for everything. I mean, we got to pay something because the government don't make money, so we have to support things. But the constant increase in taxes, they're really working hard to take away any protections. I guess it would be another way to say it, to take away any protections against our having to pay taxes. So I guess that's, I'm going to wrap it up there because I feel like I'm beating on this horse a little bit, but when it comes to no new taxes, I'm there with you. No new taxes. I don't want any new taxes. We're all not liking the income tax anyways, but the system isn't failing at this point, and they come in with all these ideas of well, it'll bring in new businesses and things of that nature. Well, you know what? There's other ways to address why people ain't happy about working in Missouri because of taxes, and this isn't it. I think they need to go back to the drawing board and try again. And with that, I'm going to say thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode. Goodbye.